Welcome to the Spa Girls podcast, the self-publishing podcast for authors. You're in the right place for writing craft, publishing business, marketing, and mindset discussion for writers. I'm Shah Barrett.
I'm Cheryl Phipps.
That just threw me
Do you
completely.
know who you are?
I didn't know what that opening was. It was like, what is that?
That was a very intriguing new opening that we just did there.
Anyway, that's Wendy and that's Trudy. So
Yeah.
they're all here.
This is what happens when you two go away and Cheryl and I are left in charge, and we like to just change the furniture around a little bit. And now you're back, and
Give
I'm
it a
sorry,
dust.
but the couch has moved and there's a new rug on the floor. Okay?
It was a lovely intro. I
just
enjoyed
thought it was
that.
lovely. I really
Thank
liked
you.
it. It
I
just
did
threw me.
share
I
it with
wondered
you
what
guys.
podcast it was.
But I'm
Yeah.
used to you not reading what I put in the message in the chat
Yeah.
message. So
Yeah,
it's
there's
okay.
that. We all have that.
So what are we talking about today,
It's a burn.
Trudy?
Whew, after that,
After that.
how to find what works for you is our topic today, and it came about because we were at conference recently, and I had a sort of a newish author come up to me and say, after a very intensive session on editing, in which I'd sat next to Wendy, and Wendy had said to me, "Oh no, this is not what I would do," and I was like, "Oh my god, I love this. This is the perfect thing to do." and this newbie author came up to me and said, so do I have to do all that? Is that what a writer does? Like I almost want to put proper writer. I can almost hear her saying that. Is that how we have to write or edit? Is that what we all have to do? And I was like, no, of course not. You pick your process. You get to do this however you like. And if that was too intensive for you, then you do something lighter. Or if you found it wrong in any other way, you get to pick. And so I think that was our topic today, where we just wanted to say to people, because we do talk a lot on the podcast that all these different people doing different processes, and sometimes you kind of get this impression that you have to do all of it, and you have to do you should be on every single platform and every single thing that we talk about on here, and that's not what we say at all, or not what we're intending to say anyway.
Or even try everything. You don't actually have to try everything, because if you find something that works, Wendy, you don't actually have to look for anything else.
Why did you mention my name then?
Because you are just so freaking awesome, and
That was a good comeback.
Yeah. I know.
It
You
was
don't
an
have to
insult,
pay me right
let's
now.
be honest.
No, it's true, isn't it? It's true, because we were just talking before how you might try something.
Yeah,
because it would speed you along, but actually you kind of have found your process, and so tampering with it might work, might not.
Yeah,
Just saying.
100% agree.
I do think when you're sitting in a conference, particularly, or a workshop, or somewhere where there are expert speakers or very experienced people doing something that you want to do.
Yes.
I mean, you do naturally think, man, okay, they know what they're talking about, which they do, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's right for you.
And also it can sound incredibly logical, because they are doing it, they're succeeding with it. So logic tells us that it must be the way.
Yeah.
And I also
sorry. And on top of that, I think it's also the fact that if you looked at us and you went through the things that we have tried and failed at, right?
I prefer the term tried and moved on from.
Okay, tried and moved on from. No failing involved here. No judgment.
Nothing wrong
This
with
is
failing.
judgment.
Failing is just part of the process.
But what I was saying there was, I have tried so many things. And I'd like to turn that my apprenticeship. I've tried that, didn't work, tried that, didn't work, tried that, didn't work. So I discarded, and I've got to where I want to be, and I still, even now, will try stuff that doesn't work, which Cheryl just reminded me of. But like what I'm trying to say is that's okay to try things, but if they don't work, don't persist.
So let's start at the beginning with trying things for the writing process. Actually,
before we do that, Sha, I want you to tell your story.
My story?
Yes. Yeah. Just quickly.
I'm burdening myself. So I had a similar feeling to the newer writer that you were talking to, but I wasn't a newer writer. I'd been sitting in conferences for many years and writing for many years. And we had a conference for romance writers in New Zealand, and there was a visiting editor, kind of author coach, and they described a particular editing process, and I thought it would be totally my jam. It involved coloured highlighters, so immediate tick for me. Anything involving stationery, potentially stationery you have to buy, straight to the top of the list. Colours, so I'm really into visual, like the whole thing, and it was highlighting different parts of your manuscript that were related to perhaps emotion or narrative, or different aspects. And I went into it so positive. I went thinking this is going to be my jam. And afterwards, I just sat there thinking, no wonder I can't write. I can't. I can't.
I don't know how to do this.
I can't do this. My brain just is broken. It was broken after the end of the 2-hour workshop. I staggered out of there, staggered to the morning tea table, which for our American audience involves about a 10 o'clock and a lot of scones, jam, cream, and that kind of thing. So carbohydrate loading. I had to load on carbs afterwards. And I felt terrible because all these people it was like the Holy Grail had been given. And I was the dude at the end of the line thinking, so what looked great on paper and I should have done, I just felt terrible because I thought, no wonder I've actually got something missing, a chip missing in my brain.
Wow.
And I think the point is there would have been people for whom the opposite reaction was, right? They would have been loving it, they would have thought it was perfect, and it would have helped them. But just for you in particular, that didn't work, and that was okay. Like, instead of it being this terrible thing where you were like, well, that's why I can't be a writer. That's why, like, what is it about that thought? And
it's
I think
that's a real thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And someone successful say something and they're successful, then it must be right.
It's imposter syndrome is my personal thing. We sit there thinking I'm not doing something right because I'm not where I want to be or whatever, and this other person standing up in front of me must know more than me because they're standing up there as an expert, so I have to try what they're doing, even if it doesn't feel natural or right or the way I should be doing things. And that's
and
hard.
Also I wanted it to be work for me. I really wanted it to. It really appealed me. That
it was pretty.
really appealed. It was pretty, involved all kinds of tactile things.
I mean, if it had puffy stickers, it would have been.
You would have had to persevere.
I would still be doing it. But yeah, sometimes you want something to work so badly that you can really force it, and it still doesn't. And that actually can end up in a little bit of a negative spiral, because it's kind of self-confirming that it's not working, so it's not working, so I'm not working, so I'm not working, so I can't write.
What's wrong with me? Why?
Rather than what's wrong with the system.
So it's not necessarily newbies that fall into that trap. Is the whole point of this kind of thing.
It's everyone.
And I think your mind can just switch off. With something that you think you should be doing, and you just can't for whatever reason, because your mind tells you that's not for you. And I think listening to that is going to save you so much time.
Oh, totally. Always listen to your intuition.
Don't force it on people. And I think that's hugely important. I had a few people approach me when I was at the conference about various things, and I was just talking to them, and as I was talking, I was thinking, you've got to be really careful the way you phrase things. This will work for you, so use it. It's not
I think especially if you're excited about it, because it does work for you. If you're excited about it, then, which any good speaker is going to be, right? I mean, that's their job, but I think, when you're new, you're so impressionable. You want to take it all on. You want to do the right thing and know all the secrets. And yet, you can't possibly do everything. You just can't.
If you think of the amount of conferences we've been to share and the amount of notes we've written in books that we've never read again, right? I have
to be fair for me personally, writing as I listen to someone talk is how I remember it better, and I never go back to my notes, but it's not because I was writing the notes to go back.
But did you keep them, Trudy?
Probably did. Because I'm also
I've got 20 years worth of books in there somewhere.
There was a gem in there somewhere, I know it.
But I don't think that those notes are necessarily for you to go back to, is my point.
No, I agree.
Writing it down also clarifies it in your mind when somebody's spoken the words. Writing it down actually puts it in your words, how you can assimilate it.
But you said something there, Wendy, that struck a chord as well. You're talking about the right thing. And that's just something I am always, a big thing for me is like, I felt like there was a right and a wrong way to do things, and I was always looking for the right way. And the fear of doing something wrong held me back from making decisions. And so that's something I've really had to work on, about just making decisions, just moving forward, and trying not to get hung up on the idea that it's the right decision, and this is the, you know, that there's only one way forward. So that's something also that we need to think
making
about
the wrong decisions helps you get to the right decision, because you know, it's a process of elimination quite often in regards to where we end up. I mean, for me, I believe that wholeheartedly, that the journey that I've taken, I have gone through so many wrong turns to get to where I am, which is, I feel, the right turns now. But it's a real, it's a process.
And I think people want to skip maybe the process. They want to go straight to the good stuff.
Of course,
the golden ticket, man. Give me the golden ticket. And we've been guilty of it. We've been guilty of it, haven't we?
Yeah. You know? Publishing your first book before it was ready.
But you see that is don't do this, but I would also add a caveat to that: do that. If that gets you over the hump, you know what, stick it up there. Like,
you got to start somewhere,
you got to start somewhere. And I think it's sort of so I just,
an example of just doing what works for you, right?
Totally.
There is no one right way, and we've talked to people who've done it all the ways.
And I mean, we will have all made mistakes, right? We would have all done things that in the long term have probably set us on the right course.
I think the only absolute truth with this journey is that you have to keep writing. And by keeping writing, you will become a better writer. And
I think that's absolutely true.
And that's 100. A story I've got in my head, and I can't remember where I've heard it. I've been doing a lot of different courses and stuff lately, but I was talking about a photography course, and they split the students in half, and one lot got told to just, it was quantity. They had to go out and take as many photos as they possibly could, and just just take lots of photos. And then the other lot were told it's all about quality. We want one perfect photo, or the best one photo that's the best you can possibly do. And so the group that just got told quantity went out and they took lots and lots of photos, and they did. And then the one group who got told quality, they sort of sat around and they planned and they plotted and they tried to figure out what would be the perfect composition and how they were going to do it. And then they looked at the end of the semester, these students, they took the best photos of each, right? So this one lot that just had the one perfect one versus the ones that had been taking hundreds of photos, their best photo. And the ones that had been taking hundreds and hundreds of photos and learning the craft and learning the skill had better photos at the end of it than the ones that sat around trying to be perfect. And it was just because they'd had the experience, and not all of their photos were perfect, but they still got to the same, to a better place at the end of it than the one that sat around trying to make the perfect photo. And I think that's
working on that first book for 10 years, isn't it?
Right. Like, just get out there and do stuff and make mistakes and try things, and it's not going to be the same for everyone. It's just not.
I agree.
We're all so different.
There is no perfect.
And we approach things differently, and we hear
look at
things
us. We're
differently.
all really different.
I
I'm right.
think Shah had some,
I mean, I'm always better than Wendy, but it's like my
but I'm always right.
Way better than Wendy's opinions. But we're all different.
Move on. Let's move on. So where are we starting? Well, no, I was suggesting that we started with writing process, and maybe just discuss how you guys approach your writing process. How would you describe your writing process in one sentence? How's that?
You go, Cher.
Do you know, the first word that came to my mind was linear, but actually that's a lie. I want it to be linear.
Lying
I want to be linear.
I want it to be linear, and I start off that way. But very often I can think of an ending or a middle bit or a black moment or something like that, and I have to write it down. So, and I can't say that it's exactly the same for every single book. I approach it the same way, but my mind is
you have great expectations when you start.
I do.
Same here.
For everything I do, I have great expectations.
Love that.
I see the journey. It just never does work.
It meanders.
Waffle. I'll go over a stream, down a hill, climb over a fence,
So do you see it as a movie in your head, Wendy?
I mean, what you said one word. If I said one
No,
word,
one sentence. I'm giving you more than one
oh,
word.
mess, really.
A mess.
A hot mess.
If we're being honest, like I am always so excited to start a book. I'm like, this is going to be the best book I've ever written. Rah, rah, rah. And then I start it and I'm like, oh Lord. I don't know, really. My process is like all of us is crazy. You know, it really is. It's all over the show. And I get to always hit that 30,000 mark without fail. And then I'm just like, I go back and completely rewrite. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And
That would
some
drive me
people just
absolutely
cringe
bonkers.
and cringe and
Yeah.
rolled up into a ball.
But yeah, I mean, I
Rewriting.
write.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't know, really. It gets all over the show. I make a few notes as I go along, but really, it's not till the second pass that things start to actually get into line. You know, it's like I use too many characters. It's like, oh, it's all just a mess. It's a hot mess. It's not until I send it away to the editor and it comes back again and think, okay, I can work with it. But yeah, my process is I sit down and I write, and
that's
from the start to the finish.
But it's quite funny actually, because you say it's a mess, but actually it's quite a
No,
consistent mess. Like you always have the same process. Like literally, we have heard
Absolutely.
you at
My
30,000
daughter came
complain.
around the
wanna
other
be
day with
consistent
my
at
husband, and
anything.
we were sitting talking, and I was just like, oh God, this is terrible. And Blake just turned around and go, we're at that stage, mate. You know.
Yeah, he knows. He
We
knows.
know. Yeah.
We all know. We all know. Cheryl's the same. You know, you're the same. It's just but here's the point in all of this. After 50 books, I'm still, got the same process, and I'm still bamboozled by it every time I start to write a book. So I'm not saying it should get easier. I understand that. I can hand on heart say to you, it has not got easier.
Yeah.
I
and hand on
believe
heart,
it's got harder.
And hand on heart, I say, if you have a better process that takes you less time,
Do it.
I bow to you.
I take my
do
hat
that.
off to you. I've tried everything that there is. And
maybe that's just your creative process, and there's nothing wrong with it, and that's okay. And it's okay that you sometimes hate your book and sometimes love it. And
I hate it every time.
But then you get to after it's printed, and I know that you love your books once they're all done and dusted. And
7 months down the track, they're the
Yeah.
best things ever written.
Yeah, exactly. So that's
I've always been a firm believer that unless you like to read your own books 7 months down the track, every book I've written, I like to read 7 months later or 6 months later, and I'm happy. If I'm happy with it, that's a good book.
Yeah,
that's just my journey, and I'm sure she is the same. And you, Trude, but we're all different, right?
Need some space. What about you, Trudy? What's your one sentence of writing process?
I mean, the word that came to mind for me was overthinking. But I think for me, my favorite part of the process is actually the planning of it, like the getting to sit there and use that creative brain and go, oh, what could happen? And what if this happened? And what if they were like this? And that's my favorite bit. And then my second favorite bit is the first draft. So those are the two parts of it that I just love doing. And then, I'm linear. Like I will go. I mean, when I'm editing, I'll go back and add stuff and add chapters and make things work maybe better. But I write from start to finish. And the reason I do that is because I was stuck on the first, 5 chapters for years because I kept rewriting them and trying to make them perfect or right or whatever. And so for me, I just need to get it out and get it done. But I also need to know where I'm going because I know Wendy can handle deleting 30,000 words or changing and rewriting that, but I can't. I want to know that it's and for Wendy, I know that some of the joy goes out of it for her because she's a discovery writer kind of thing. Like if she plans it, then she's written it as far as she's concerned, and writing it again is boring. Whereas for me, I create the story and then I get to embellish the story. So there's something about that, actually writing it and the attempts or my attempts to kind of make that story even better on the page. There's something in that I get excited about. So that's why I don't mind doing the plotting, I think, the plotting and then the writing. So that wasn't one sentence, but that's
okay.
Well, none of
Never
us
is.
got the
Never is with us.
And I'll pitch in here since I'm back writing fiction again. So for me, it's 2 things. It's beat your brain and snippets. So beat my brain is where I used a timer. So before I can start overthinking and before I start second guessing, I do a 15-minute on my phone, and that just settles everything down.
Mhm.
Second thing is I need snippets, so work in little snippets, because I get too, I don't know, I just get too overwhelmed. So if I just do little snippets, that helps a lot. So that's me. So and I would be very much at the beginning of my fiction writing journey compared to these guys. So that's what I have discovered currently that works for me. I would love to, I love the plotting and the planning and all that kind of stuff as well, and I think I'm good at that, but I'm not good at it. Becomes effectively I've finished the work and I'm not getting the words written down.
I'm done.
You know,
I'm
done.
I'm really intrigued by Steph Green's, what she does, or Stephanie Holmes, with the skeleton draft. And I've always kind of thought that's a kind of neat way to do that. Like you write a kind of almost an outliney draft, and then you go back in for a second and you fill stuff in, and that seems like a cool way to do it.
Another one, I mean, there's a myriad of different ways, but another one that really appeals to me, and I have tried, and it does help a lot for getting over the overthinking, second guessing stage, is writing what they call the candy bar scenes. So writing the really scenes that you're really excited about and getting those all written first, and then you write the connecting things, and that's that's cool as well.
I tried
kind
that.
Of front
struggle with that
enjoyment.
because I don't know how to get from there to there.
Yeah. Wow.
It's you can actually just work gently backwards. Into it. Like fall into it.
Like
that.
That's me.
But I've written the end scene, and then like a couple of chapters prior to that, I know that there's going to be a big discovery that's going to take me a couple of chapters to get to the end. So that does help a lot. And also, this is just a little tip and really apropos of nothing, but when I've written that last scene, I find that then that's a really good time to write that bonus epilogue that you might use for something else. And because it's like what happens after,
Yes.
So,
and you're still in that brain. You're still in that kind of thinking.
Yeah, I
so
don't. I wish I did, but I don't do
like
that. I write it about 3 weeks later and I know nothing about the book.
So what's
because I'm done with it. When I write the end, I don't want to read that book anymore.
It's overstayed its welcome in your brain,
Yeah,
and you don't want to spend another minute longer with it.
Well, they're long books. They're long books. I think maybe because mine's a bit shorter, and maybe because sometimes I get to the end before I finish, so maybe that keeps it a bit fresher. I don't know.
All right, so let's.
But I think, sorry, I was going to say, like if you said to each of us, you've received a lot of information over the years, but one piece that stuck with you that you still use today. Does anyone have that? Does anyone have one piece of information that they...
In terms of writing process?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, for me, I got one valuable piece of information at the very first conference I went to, and I still use it today.
Which
is keep writing, and if you want, because I couldn't finish a book.
Yeah.
And Gracie said to me, keep writing, and if you feel like you're blocked, just write in there what you need and carry on. And I still use that today. That is the one piece of information I've always kept with me.
Mine would be similar. Mine would be don't try to be perfect, like just get it out there, just get it down. And that's kind of almost Nora Roberts, just you can't edit a blank page, right? You can't do anything with nothing, so get something down.
Cheryl, have you got one piece?
Probably not for the writing, but I think like from the very, very get-go, to me, this is another truth, is that to have some sort of Bible or something that can tell you about your people in your town, so that you're not searching for it, I mean, you can add to it as you go along, but it's just somewhere to start.
That's it. Really I like that. That is easier to do it as you're going than it is after
you've got to read the book all the way through again, just to get those snippets, and to know what your person actually does look like, because sometimes you see them in your head and you don't write it down, and then you kind of lost along the way, especially if they're side characters.
For me, it was doing Becca Syme's Write Better Faster course, and it was understanding my Clifton strengths, number one of which is intellection, which means you have to have a lot of thinking. You think things through first, and it was just how I work. And I've always felt that it was an annoying part of my psyche rather than it's actually a strength. And so I think it's that for me, it was working with your strengths rather than, and that's why so much of the different process or different workshops or different conferences doesn't work necessarily for us personally, because it's the person coming to it or telling us that is just coming from a different place of different strengths of you go down that track.
I mean, Becca Syme, the strength stuff is actually the perfect example of what we're talking about here today. It's that you know, everyone has different strengths, and you play to your strengths, and don't feel like you have to follow the example of someone who might be just better at something in a different way to you. Like I know Cheryl and Wendy are massive doers, and I have been in the avalanche of them doing stuff before where I've been kind of panicking because I've been like, no, we need to think about this a bit more. No, we need to
we're like, no, we don't.
No, and these two are just doing stuff, and it's actually quite freaky. Like I was actually scared. I've seen that. I was like, no, it's just no, but and then it's already done, and I'm like, oh, okay then.
So the flip side to that is, sorry, Shah, the flip side to that is Cher and I have been around when you two were talking something to death and talking about, you know, and the two of us are like, I just turn around to the side and start working on something else. Cher and I have learned to just let them go.
No, exactly.
That's a perfect example, right?
And I mean, it's very meta, but the perfect example is that Trudy and I really resonated with us. I mean, we all love Becca, but particularly that resonated with Trudy and I, and it didn't resonate so much with Cheryl and Wendy because it's just, you know, it just doesn't, like and that's okay too. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong. But
I want to have some strengths, but the truth is,
everybody has strengths. There is
no. I mean, you know, like when you guys say, "Oh, this is what I am," or blah blah blah.
And we look at each other and go,
I did write it down somewhere.
So I'm not going to go into it deeply here because, you know, but there's different types of strengths. So there's strategic and there's the thinking ones, and then there's the executing. This will come as no shock to anybody, but my executing strengths are like at the bottom of my list, and the thinking ones are at the top. And so I'm not, you're not meant to decide what other people are. But guessing that you guys, it's probably a lot of executing strengths, and I wish.
And we don't think, is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that at all, because it's a different type of thinking, but I wish I had some of these, you know. So it's the old story, we all wish we had different things that, you know, other people.
And can I just say, add to that, Shah, that these are the things that you know about yourself, and yet you run your own business. So you have to do things. If you didn't do them, you wouldn't be in business. Well,
two businesses, exactly. No, it is. It's fascinating. The human brain is fascinating. But go listen to that podcast. We'll link it in our show notes with Becca, and there's a lot around about her too. So that's just that. So should we talk about publishing, the actual, like, how to find what works for you in terms of your publishing strategy, shall we say?
And look at us all staring at each other. What?
Well,
I mean, it's just, I think the thing is, it's
more of the same.
It's the same. Like, I mean, we've talked about all of these different things before, with the differences in what we do in terms of everything, and it's just knowing that it's okay. I mean, the main thing that you have to do that you can't not do is actually put the book up, right? Like publishing, getting an account, putting your book on Amazon with a cover, you know, with all those sorts of things, and you want to make it the best you can make it. But aside from that, I mean, I guess it's more the marketing where you kind of, I mean, how much different?
Well, I'm thinking more of like what it is you choose to publish for a start. So for example, somebody like myself that's not a fast writer, going into somewhere that's like, you know, a book a month or more, like that's not necessarily going to be a great fit. You know, maybe I could make it work. Maybe I would drive myself completely insane in a very short period of time. So it's just kind of, there is that to it as well, you know, what works. And also the type of writing that you do in terms of, you know, the I would say even the genre or the subgenre as well. That is.
I have a good story. I mean, and I know we've all heard this before, but it's my where I got to this point where I was like, right, well, I have to write to market, and I have to put the books out really fast, and I have to do certain things, and that's the only way to publish. And then I tried doing that, and I kind of ended up burning myself out a little bit. And then so now I've stopped doing that, and I've taken a step back and kind of looked at the things about writing that I love to do, and kind of tried to change it so that I'm doing the things that I love, and I feel like by doing that I'm making a better book for my writing. Like there's other authors that could do this, the same kind of writing that I'm trying to achieve in a slower pace. They could do it at a fast pace. Like that's this whole point of this. This is not me saying everyone has to write slowly. It's just that for me, I just needed to take more time, and I was writing things really fast, and then not feeling as, like the 7-month test that Wendy was talking about. Like I was rereading these books afterwards and going, oh, I'm not sure about this, like I'd lost that feeling of feeling proud of my books. And I don't say they were bad books. I just, I don't know, there was just something about me needing to take a bit more time to kind of, I don't know, soak up the atmosphere.
That's an evolution, isn't it, of becoming a better writer?
Maybe, yeah. So I just felt like there was things that I did because I felt like I had to or should because of the environment or the industry. And then what I've learned is that I don't actually think that you have to do anything a certain way. I think there's authors out there making an amazing living doing it slower, and I think there's people out there doing an amazing living doing it fast. And
absolutely, I think that is definitely a really important point, because I've seen that time and time again, particularly on some of the larger writing forums where you've got a real mix often of newbies, and the consensus, well, should I say, often the conventional wisdom is treated as you've got to be publishing, maybe romance, and you've got to do it really frequently to make a full-time living at this, and that is just not true. But it's there's different techniques. We've talked to Jamie Albright, who talks about publishing 1 or 2 books a year and making a living. It's a different strategy, and that's what I was meaning about publishing strategy as well. It's not just what you publish, but it's how often you publish and all the rest of it. So
I was listening to something, Ines Johnson talking about this, and she talked about how she almost forgets about her current releases because a lot of her focus is on her backlist now, because she's got this backlist of books, and that's where she puts all of her advertising and all her other sort of marketing and publishing energy is there. And then when she has a new release out, it's like oh shivers, I better get that done, rather than it being the sole focus of it is being on that front list, that new releases. So that's a really interesting kind of change of mindset too.
And I mean, sort of how I do it too. I think that I push more, I market my backlist more than anything, and a new release is like sort of 2 weeks before. It's like, well, okay, we better pull finger and do something for this new release.
And again, if you're only publishing a book a year, then it would be probably quite different, so again, what you do is dependent on how you publish as well, as much as anything else.
There is no one shoe fits all.
And who was it? Was it Amelia Rose that we had that was doing the subscriptions? Yes. Right.
Yes.
So I loved having her on the show because she was doing something completely different again. I felt like she was
so different.
Her big strategy is subscription based writing, essentially, and that's sort of another whole mindset around what we've been doing. It's so different. So I just. You can do
if you
so
haven't
many
listened to
things.
that episode, you need to go and listen to it, even if you have absolutely no interest in writing serial fiction or doing it in the way. But it's just I think listening, it's really important, particularly for those of us that have been around more than 20 years in this community, is listening to younger writers that are seeing success recently, because it can become a bit of an echo chamber. You hear the same people on the same podcasts, and then it becomes the one right way. I promise this isn't going to be a shower rant, because I'm not dissing anybody, and I'm not saying that they're not right, but it's really also important to listen to the young ones coming through, and young in age, they see things publishing. And they're not coming with what we're coming to this with, which is 20 years of sitting in writers' conferences, listening to editors and agents saying, we don't know what we're looking for, we're just not when we see it, kind of thing. Man, if I had a t-shirt with that written on it, would have made a fortune. But they're not coming with that sort of backstory. They're not, or that trauma, or their bitterness. No, we're not going bitter. But I think it's really, really good. And I was so excited for us to talk with Amelia, and we're going to be talking to other newer self-publishing writers, because I think it's really important, because you can learn just as much from somebody like that is publishing for way less time than you can from somebody that's been doing this for, since Kindle was a baby. Kind of thing.
I went to a writer's thing a couple of weekends ago down not far from Trudy actually, and so all the authors got to speak for about 4 minutes on their project, their book, whatever it was, and honestly it just filled my heart with the people aged from like late teens to in their 80s publishing their first books, and sometimes more than that, and they were so passionate about it and so filled with joy. And I think, man, that's where you have to start from.
Mm-hmm.
That's where, you're getting the book out there, you're getting it off your chest, you're doing the thing that you always wanted to do.
And it's really easy to lose that, isn't it, when you're trying to tick all the boxes and do all the things and think about platform and this, that, and the next thing. It's easy to not have the energy to put into that joy. It really is.
I think you don't have the time either to put.
It seems almost indulgent, doesn't it?
Yes,
Sitting there thinking,
let's celebrate my first book. Which is sold 10 copies,
and it's the most important part, right? Like, why are we doing this if not because it's joyful for us? It's I think that's super important.
There are easier ways to make money, so I think you've got to keep that joy if you can, or feed it. It won't be there all the time. Feed the joy. Okay, so I guess this takes us on to marketing just quickly, which is just how we approach marketing, and it's probably not dissimilar. It's again, there is no one right way.
No.
I mean, I guess I would say, if I had to pick one thing, it would be try and have an email newsletter list. It would be try and 100%. Just have some contact with your readers, because then no matter what happens on the social media platforms that you have no control over, and frankly, no matter what happens on the retailer platforms that you also have no control over, you have got, even if you've got 50 people on your list, that's 50 people that you can rebuild if necessary or to nurture. That would be my only, I guess, thing.
Then there are authors who don't have that and are doing perfectly well.
And there are people that don't have that, absolutely. So, but that would be, if you can, that would be my number one thing on the marketing front.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have anything to add to that, to be honest.
Come on, somebody dissent. Somebody.
Well, I just mean that. I agree that a newsletter list is important. I just think there are people out there who don't have them and are doing perfectly well. So
100%.
I would say
overwhelming.
Yeah,
maybe.
But I would say that the really upside to having a newsletter list, apart from the obvious that you've got people to market to, is that you may find some people there that can help you, as in ARC readers and beta readers and reviewers. It's really important to get some reviews up as soon as you can. So that's a little avenue that's not going to cost you anything, and you can start to nurture a little bit of a fan base. So that's just my take on that.
And just try stuff. Don't get overwhelmed by it. Just get in there.
Don't try everything. Like, don't do everything.
Just do one thing, and if it works for you, then that's your jam. If it's not, then move on to the next one. It's
and
okay,
I think that's so true.
Not succeed at something. I'm not saying fail. It's just a U-turn onto the next thing.
Yeah. And the same thing with learning how advertising, whether it's Amazon ads or Facebook ads or whatever type of advertising it is, again, looking at courses or workshops or books or, techniques, instructors, what works for one person doesn't work for the other. And it doesn't mean if it doesn't work for you that you are somehow broken, or that you aren't bright enough to do it, or you don't have the technical knowledge or whatever. It just, again, like the strengths we were talking about before, the writing, it's different. Advertising forms of ways of advertising seems to me to jive with different personality types.
But even listening to courses, like I find that I've listened to sort of several courses that are Facebook courses, for example, Facebook ads, and I will there's ones where I've completely gelled with the person, what they're saying, and other ones where I've been a little bit like, oh, I'm not sure about this person. And it's just that difference in the way we think and how we kind of understand stuff and how that person is explaining it to them.
Yeah, how we process the information coming in is such
sometimes it can be something as shallow as the voice.
Yes.
Really. Sometimes the
that's
voice
so
just
true.
does not, you just can't, it's like,
yeah.
nah, enough.
But basically what we're saying, it's okay to try something different.
Yeah, and it's okay if you don't agree with what's happening in the mainstream, and because
Absolutely.
it is a little bit of an echo chamber out there sometimes. And
It can be. And there isn't, and I'm just going to say this here again, mentioning no names, but there isn't the one course or the one book that you should read on a particular marketing topic, whether it's advertising, for example. And if it's something that you can't afford or whatever, it doesn't mean that you're destined for failure, because it's not, you tend to hear, no matter what it is, you tend to hear the good reviews or the good testimonials, because they're sought out, because let's face it, we all want people, if you're listening to this podcast right now and you enjoy it, we would love you to review us on, I mean, that's we do, we all survive by that. But it doesn't, I've seen a lot of people going into serious debt to afford things, and that worries me, because to be honest, the information is all there. What you're doing by paying for a course particularly is saving yourself time, because the information is presented to you, but you can absolutely learn that free of charge. And if you want to,
courses are good too, though.
You just, we've got 360 episodes on this podcast that are all free, all for the listening. And we talk to every person that's top, and the providers of these, BookBub, all the rest of it, Amazon ads, etc., are all there. And it's really there's nothing hidden. There is no secret knowledge.
The only given for these people is our podcast, really. Everything else is just
actually, that's a very good point, Wendy. We could have summed this whole thing up by saying,
listen to
the podcast.
Listen to us.
Only if you want to, though, all right?
Yeah. No, I just wanted to do that because, times are particularly tough for a lot of people at the moment. And I don't want you to feel like without doing something or attending some particular conference or whatever, that you're not going to succeed, because you are.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Just
brilliant advice.
Yeah. Have confidence in yourself. Go forth. Get writing. Get it up.
Yeah.
That's it, baby.
Everything else is gravy.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Are we done? Is it?
Yes.
I feel like we're done.
Yeah, I think we are.
Awesome. Well, where can we be found, Sha?
We can be found at spargirlspodcast.com, where you'll find all our episodes, again, obviously on whatever your favorite podcast app. And we also can be found at patreon.com/spargirlspodcast. We really appreciate the coffees and the high fives there. And if you want to join us at the US $10 tier, then you can join our Facebook group where you can ask everything.
Ask us to get YouTube.
And of course, YouTube. And can I just say to everybody that's subscribed on YouTube, I love you. We're at 738.
She's getting excited, people.
I'm getting very excited. I watch the numbers every day.
Yeah.
And none of those people are like, they're all our friends because you guys have subscribed, but they're not people that we've like arm twisted, like family members that have never heard a self-publishing podcast in their life. We're desperate to get to 1,000. So please, 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 that's my goal by the end of the year. If you're a YouTube follower, please subscribe to the Spark Girls podcast.
Nice.
Awesome.
And we will love you forever.
We do.
I don't know about the others. Anyway,
all right.
Thank you all for listening to another episode of the Spa Girls podcast. We will be back again next week. But for now, farewell.
Bye.
Bye.